All right, all right, all right. Just watched Studio 666, Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. Um, yeah, entertaining, I suppose, if you like rock and roll, if you like the Foo Fighters, if you like Evil Dead, if you like Michael Jackson's Thriller, if you like demonic possession movies. It's not like a heavy, heavy movie that's going to spook anybody. It's mostly tongue in cheek. Um, I chuckled a few times. It wasn't like the most rip roaring, laugh out loud comedy I've ever seen, but it did have a few good laughs. Dave Grohl wrote the story or the script, basically. And the story takes place where the band is working on their 10th album and they're kind of stuck. They're in a rut, so they want to break out. So they find this house that's going to inspire them. And Jeff Garland plays Shill, their manager, and he finds them this spooky house with kind of a decent looking lady next door who's kind of a groupie. And they move into the house for like a month to record the album. Well, right off the bat, one of their roadies gets fried, electrocuted, and that's not a good sign. And then we see basically that Dave becomes inhabited by a demon. He's possessed by a demon, sort of like The Exorcist. We see some Exorcist projectile vomiting scenes with Dave that are not green, but they're similar to Linda Blair. Not as well done as Linda. Of course, William Friedkin, great director, and the director of this movie, I can't remember his name, but it's got a few good riffs in it. You know, they don't really play any Foo Fighter songs to speak of that much in the movie. There's a funny cameo in the movie by Lionel Richie. That part I don't want to say any more about, but it's really good. Will Forte, who was a fairly funny guy on SNL years ago, an alumni, makes a little guest appearance in the movie too. And as I say, Jeff Garland, who was on the TV show, he's been on a lot of shows. He's a character actor, big chunky guy. He was the manager also of Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. So now the spooky monster demons, they look phony. They look fake. They're just like little, like a kid you'd see on Halloween with sort of a pumpkin jack-o'-lantern face on them sometimes. And there's some real gross out gore in the movie. I mean, it's pretty, there's gratuitous violence. There is a very, not explicit, but a very pretty potent gratuitous sex scene where we see the woman really getting off and the guy too. And then they both get well, I'm spoiler there. I'm about to tell you what. No, I won't give that away. What happens to them? But it's not pretty. And I just want to say that this kind of movie is what I call schlock comedy horror. It's meant to kind of horrify you on one level, but it's meant to, you know, make you laugh on another. That it's just ridiculous and absurd. It's not like a Wes Craven movie or Hellraiser or some of these more serious Exorcistic or some of the more powerful demonic movies that are meant to actually scare you, and they do sometimes. Some people, Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes to mind, and we get to see a chainsaw scene. So they borrow from a lot of movies in the past. Dave Grohl, not a prolific, he's no Stephen King as a writer of horror stories, but I thought for maybe his first effort that I know of anyway, making a movie, it was kind of cool seeing the band members act maybe a little bit like they do in real life, I got to guess. I mean, a lot of the shtick and the trade-offs, you know, and the comeback one-liners and all that kind of sarcastic remarks that people make to each other. They love each other, but it's nasty how they talk to each other. There's no actually drug use in the movie. There's no actual nudity, even in that sex scene. We don't get to see any nudity really, but there is a lot of swearing, a lot of profanity. If the GD word, the F word, and all the other words in between offend you, I would recommend you stay away. But if that doesn't really rock your boat in the negative way, I mean, it rocks your boat maybe the other way, or maybe you're just neutral about it, which I kind of am now. I've kind of cut out swearing for the most part, the heavy swearing I used to do for years. But when I see a movie like this where they're swearing throughout the movie, it kind of sounds funny. It's like, wow, they're using all those words over and over and over. They don't need to. There's definitely a more clever, funnier way to express yourself with words than just relying on profanity over and over. But I imagine that's how the guys talk in the band. I guess Dave wrote this sort of as an autobiographical story in a way in terms of how the band relates to each other. But he threw in this whole demonic possession thing, and a lot of people get chopped up and murdered. And then towards the end, we see that it kind of hinges on the idea of selling your soul to the devil for rock and roll. It goes back to Robert Johnson, you know, and many others in between, Jimmy Page and, you know, Mark Bolan and David Bowie and all of them, even maybe the Rolling Stones, Jagger and Richards, people that have apparently sold out. I mean, did they really do that? Did they sell their soul to the devil for success? I couldn't say, but the movie kind of illustrates that happening, and it is just a throw off movie, a kind of a fun escapist movie. I wouldn't take it too seriously or anything like that, even though there's some fun action with reel to reel, 10-inch reel to reel tape recorder playing backwards, and the idea of satanic messages woven into songs when you play them backwards and all that. So they play off a lot of riffs and things that you've heard about before, metaphors in rock and roll, and overall, I guess I'm going to give this movie kind of a neutral. Not a big thumbs up, not a big thumbs down. Just kind of, it's going to be for the hard rock and roller who likes the Foo Fighters or bands like that. If you like the Evil Dead series and that kind of thing, The Howling, movies that are somewhat funny but also very horrific at the same time, you might want to check out Studio 666. On the other hand, you might want to wait for it to come on your streaming service, whichever one it plays on, or even pick up the DVD. But it's kind of a mixed bag for me tonight. So that's it from the Belmar Theater on Studio 66, Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters.